Hello! I'm going to explain how to set up a Stripe webhook in a Google Sheet and in Stripe. I'm going to show you exactly how to set this up. I'm going to share with you also the script and the code that goes along with the script. It's actually available on GitHub, so stay tuned and I'll share with you. Actually, you don't even have to stay tuned too much. It's in the link is in the description below to get this. It's available for the public. A treat for those who are not Better Sheets members. But if you are a Better Sheets member, you get everything that I put out as a script, as a template, everything, all the sheets that I do, all the videos have, if you're a paid member of Better Sheets, all the videos have a link to where you can get that sheet or script or whatever it is. And in this case, in this video, we're going to be doing something very interesting in Stripe where we're grabbing webhooks. And why are we doing this? Because I'm building, or I have built already, a newsletter creator. It's a Google Sheet that helps you create a curated newsletter. And I've been flummoxed before of how do I create Stripe payments so that I could essentially create Substack in a Google Sheet. Well, this is one of the steps. I'm still working through this particular script and still working on adding and making it a little bit nicer and easier for the user. But I wanted to share this with you because it actually works. We're grabbing webhooks, which means we're creating a webhook as a web app in Google Script, which means that every time Stripe fires some event, you get a new customer, you get a payment, you get a cancellation. It sends that information to this webhook, and this webhook will put it into this sheet. So what that means is that I can monitor, I can get the email address of a new customer, I can find out if they paid within the last 30 days or within the past month. I can keep a list. If I filter this, I can keep a list of all those who have paid within the last month, those who have canceled, those new customers who haven't paid yet. I can keep track of those separate lists. And what's really cool about this is, like, if I have a Google account, right, with my newsletter domain name, and I have this data in a Google Sheet, I can do a lot of stuff with it. I can export that to a CSV to send it to MailChimp or some other newsletter provider. Yes, I can absolutely use Substack. But then I have to download the customer information. I have to get the email addresses. If I have to download that and put it somewhere else. And this keeps it all within Google Sheets, and then I can do anything with it. What's really fun, too, is I found this script. Most of this script was found on a Stack Overflow. So this part at the top and then this part at the end when we insert the data, that is all from Stack Overflow, this wonderful thing. But I ended up adding this switch case to this, and I'll explain the code a little bit more. I will walk through the code now. Then we'll walk through actually how to set up the web app and the web hook in Stripe. And then at the end, I'm going to explain really more details about Newsletter Creator, about why I'm doing this, but also I'll share with you some use cases that I've come up with of why would you use this as a webhook in Stripe, because maybe you're keeping track of your payments, maybe you're keeping track of your sales in Stripe, but you want to export that data, or you want to keep a log, which is what I'm doing, is keeping a log of all of that in a Google Sheet so I can filter it in pretty simple ways. Again, Stripe has all of these sort of dashboards if you want. You can build your own dashboard in a Google Sheet, but Stripe has some really nice dashboards. You might want to stay over there. All right, so let's explain this code first. Again, in the description below, you'll have access to the GitHub. That's available for all the public. I'm making this available for completely everyone, Better Sheets members and all. Better Sheets members get this video first. If you want to become a Better Sheets member, go to bettersheets.co. And now let's start. So to create a web hook in Stripe, we need a link. We need a URL to send that data to. And in order to do that, we have to create a web app, and we need to deploy our code as a web app. Well, to deploy our code, we need to have this function do post. And this creates an event, this E. And what does that do is it grabs the JSON, creates it as an event. It then we'll get a timestamp here. We get the last row of the sheet we're going to. I'm going to sheet log. You can change that name to whatever you want to name it as. What's the most interesting part of this code is that I have grabbed this event type, which is in the data package that is sent. This type is like the actual webhook name. And so I'll show you in Stripe exactly what I'm sending. I'm sending these event types, but you can send every event type if you want, and then parse it and figure out what are you going to do with that event. Sometimes you do nothing. Sometimes you want to put it in the log. Sometimes you want to tag it. And what I've added here is this switch. So based on whatever this event type is, so back here in webhooks, these are 4 different types: customer created. And in my case, I'm creating, like I said, a Substack in Google Sheets. So what do I want to? What do I care about? I care about if a customer's created, right? If they send me their email address. I care if they've paid, when they paid, and I care about that the charge succeeded, right? If there's a charge that hasn't succeeded, I want to deal with that in Stripe, not in Google Sheets. And then the last thing is I want to know if they canceled, right? So using Stripe Checkout, we can send them a link, send them an invoice in our sort of idea of a newsletter. Everybody signs up for a free newsletter, but then I can add a link that says, hey, do you want to join a paid one? And I would imagine the workflow would be like everyone joins a free newsletter and people upgrade from there. There's not many people, and I wouldn't imagine many people will just want the paid. They'll want to get the free plus the paid. So that all works in this workflow. Outside of that workflow, I can't imagine there are edge cases, but we're going to deal with this first. And again, I'm working on this script, adding to it later, but here's where we got. We got these event types. So we know what customer created, charge succeeded, and canceled, right? Okay, so we go back to our code, and this hook type is saying if there's customers created, well, we want to tag it as new customer. Okay, so that's the hook type. We want to get the customer ID, and we want to get the customer email. That's the most important thing, is we want to know if somebody's a customer of ours, what is their email address? And the other things we get, we don't necessarily need to know their email address because it doesn't come in the data. What does come in the data is the customer ID. And so we want to treat those other webhooks differently, and we don't want to get the email because we can't get it. We do want to get the customer ID and match that to the ID that we got when the customer was created. So all of this switch case, we write it as switch, and then in parentheses we just write what is the data that is going to handle, and then in the case we go, basically this is like a really convoluted, a non-convoluted if-else. So I started to originally write this in like an if this, then check this as if, else if, and it was not working at all. But when I use this switch, when I said this data is going to be something, well, in this case, when the hook type, when the event type is equal to customer.created, tag that as a new customer. And why did I do this? Why did I change that verbiage? I could have literally said, like, just tag it as customer.created. Well, in Google Sheets, we might be building this, we might be using this script for others. We might be writing this script, but someone in Google Sheets is reading this data. And not every single person is going to understand customer.created, but they will understand the verbiage and the words new customer. This is a new customer, a new user, a new subscriber. You can name it anything you want. And so I think changing that name and tagging it as such that as in this new phrase is much nicer for users of our sheets if we are building for someone else. And it just makes it easier for me when I'm done with creating the script to grab this data, right? A new customer, I can filter this, do anything I want with it. And here's what we end up with. We get a date and time, we get this timestamp, we get this type, we get the data all here. I'm, again, in the middle of really parsing through all this and figuring it out. So I really want to grab all that data and see what can I work with, and it's all of this stuff. But this email, when it's a new customer, This email is buried here. Where is it? Email equals carl@gmail.com. And I want to parse that out. So how did I parse that out? I literally said event data dot object, which we can see is this part. See, this is named object. Object equals all of this. Okay? And then I said dot email. That's it. Really simple way to grab that email and say, we want to grab it. We don't have to do any regex, regular expressions. We don't have to do any weird replace, splitting, anything. With this script, this event data .object.email makes it super easy to grab that data. And what's really cool too is all of this data is available to us now. Country, invoice settings, anything here we can grab. Tax IDs. But right now we're just grabbing the email and we want this customer ID so that once we get all the customer IDs, we want to say, have they paid in the last 30 days or last month? And again, I'll be dealing with that all later. I just want to walk through this. And then we have to break, because if we don't break, it's going to go through this whole thing. Really, we want to make this a little faster and just like break, go on, move on. Then we insert the data into the sheet, and I have 5 values here. I have the timestamp. I have the type, which I've switched with this switch case. I've made that into a nice readable thing. I have all the data here just in case I want to look through this later and get more. Customer email. When there is a customer email, it puts it in. If you notice here, some are blank. It's because once we have payment, new subscriber, all these other things, the webhook is not sending it with this email. See, email equals null. So I wasn't able to grab the email then, but I can get this customer ID and always go back to this customer and figure out what their email is. All right. Next, I'm going to show you how to deploy. So this is the new Google Scripts IDE. If you're using legacy editor, it's a little different. You just go up to deploy, new deployment, and we want to select our web app here. I've already done this before, so you might see something. You might see like 4 different types here. This description is like a little information of like, oh, fixing bugs. You might want to say that. And now we can hit deploy. Now this is important. If you have not done this before, you get this web app and you need to copy this. If you have done this, see, I've done this 15 other times. This is version 16. So I already have this web app, but I'm going to copy this URL, this web app URL, because this is how we're going to set up our webhook. Okay, we copy that. Copied it. Now our webhook, I'm going to walk you through this. Let's go back. We need to move my face. In Stripe, if you are creating new Stripe, I'm not going to walk through how to create a Stripe. Just go to Developers, Webhooks, and this is what you'll see. I'm viewing only test data, so I only have this. I'm actually going to delete. No, I'm going to delete this and start again. Delete webhook, and I'll walk you through everything here. So here's all your endpoints. We want to create or add endpoint. This endpoint URL is going to be the deploy web app. So we take that, Command V. This is the web app. And we're going to do web app for Stripe into Google Sheets. You can name it whatever you want. I haven't changed this version. So if you're struggling, if the different version, if the latest API if you have this latest API version and it's not working, it might be because I'm using this current API version from 2017. Now, you can select like all events, but for this particular webhook, I only want to, again, get if a customer is created. So I search for customer.created. Then I want to know if they have a subscription. Oops, I always do this. So go here, subscription, customer subscription created. I did all of this. Okay, customer created, subscription created. I also want to know if they've paid, right? payment, and not checkout, not invoice. I want payment success. Oh. That's what I want. Oh, the charge, sorry, not payment. Charge succeeded. And then I also want to know if they canceled, right? Canceled. Payout. Subscription. Schedule canceled. So this is what you can set up your web app as you wish, or your webhook, sorry, as you wish, and send only the events you want to send. Again, you could probably send all of them and just have some error handling and be like, some event happened, we don't care about it. So we add endpoint, and we're in the testing data, and I want to send a webhook. So we have this URL here. We're going to send the webhook. Let's do customer created, because that's the very first thing that'll happen. And it'll tell you what happened here, and it says test webhook error 500. If this happens to you, go over here and slide this across and you'll see this error. And you can read it. Where is it? A server error occurred. Please wait a bit and try again. Okay, so let's go back to here. And another place to see if it's run but there's an error is if I go to, where is that? It's a little hard. Executions, there it is. It's a little hard to remember. And here's version 16. What this is a long time ago. So it didn't happen. Let's just wait a little. Let's do exactly what they said. Let's wait a little. Let's send test webhook again. And we scroll down to the bottom. And it says test webhook sent successfully. So if we go to our sheet, we can see new customer here, and it's this test email here. So you can see 7:06. It is 7:06 a.m. It's 7:06 a.m. here. Great. This is a new one. So this webhook works perfectly. If this keeps failing on you, read through this response here, and sometimes you can figure out what changes need to happen. Let's send another test. So the next thing that'll happen is that a subscription schedule, customer subscription created. So let's send that test hook. And we scroll down. And test webhook sent successfully. We go to our sheet, and it says new paid subscriber. Great. Well, are they paid? Let's see. Let's actually send a charge succeeded. Send that test. And then we go back. Payment. Great. It works, right? Someone paid us. Stripe sent the webhook, and it gets into our Google Sheet. This is really cool because also we can see if they canceled. We can be like, hey, should we send something to someone who canceled their payment? Not at all. So let's see. Test webhook 500, and probably going to say, sorry, server error code. Please wait a bit and try again. So let's wait 20 seconds, or 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Send test hook. Did we wait long enough? Yeah, there we go. And we go back to our sheet, and we see canceled. Great. So now we know if we have a new customer, what their email address is, if they've paid, if they've canceled. We know everything in this sheet, and we can filter it and everything. So, again, if you are looking for the code, check out the GitHub. I've made this available for public in GitHub, made it copyable, pastable. Use this. Make it as, for every use case you want, you can use switch case to take that hook type and put it into your sheet. I will explain this a little bit more right now, is that the sheet that you're getting, I've got the range. This number here is the column. Last row plus 1 is the final row, the next blank row. If you have an error when you first start putting data into this sheet, one reason you might is you have not you don't have any data. You might have to put these headers in. I had to type these headers in manually, and then once I had some data in here, I figured out, okay, the last row is this one, put in information there. You can also clear this information and delete it, or delete the rows. As you can see, I deleted a bunch of rows before. And then if you have a bunch of rows, if you have 1,000 rows and you don't see any data here, but everything is working perfectly, try scrolling down. I like to delete all those rows because then I don't get into that trouble of having some dot somewhere or some weird data somewhere that I'm like, oh, I didn't know there was data in that sheet, in that row, and now the last row is like 1,001. The use case that I'm using for this is to create some kind of Substack in a Google Sheet. So other use cases are for your own personal benefit of keeping a log of all of your Stripe payments, all your customers. If you might be already using some sort of Zapier, Pabbly, some connection of saying, hey, the Stripe occurs here, and I want to put it in a Google Sheet over here, but this sort of skips all that step, and you don't have to use Zapier. You can create your own webhook and use that from Stripe to get information from Stripe, events in Stripe, into a Google Sheet. Let me know your use cases right in the description below if you have a different use case and you're using this code. Thank you so much for watching. If you are actually interested in creating a newsletter yourself, I do have Newsletter Creator available for sale. Better Sheets members do get all of the inner workings, and I am making videos about how all of this works and releasing sort of all the code separately. But everyone who buys this package of Newsletter Creator, I'll also link to that in the description. You get everything and you use it. You don't have to learn how it works. You just get to use it. So for $79, one-time payment, Newsletter Creator is available for your use. If you want to know how it's made and you want to know all of the scripts and all of the little templates and all of the stuff that I put into this, then become a Better Sheets member today, bettersheets.co. Thank you so much for watching. And again, check out GitHub. I've made this code available for free for everyone. Bye.